Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm looking to continue my milestone videos with a road to a 600-pound deadlift, kind of sharing with you all my experience and the techniques and what I learned along the way between 500 and 600 pounds on my deadlift. Also, stick around to the end because I do have the actual footage of that 600-pound deadlift that we can take a look at and kind of show how my form had changed between the 500 and 600-pound pulls and how it's different than today, because this voiceover, you'll notice I go over 600 pounds and it does look significantly different. Okay, so thinking back to that first 500-pound deadlift, it was 515 to be exact, and it was the summer before my senior year of high school, so it would have been in 2013. And some of those things that I had learned leading up to that 500-pound deadlift was, one, how to train hard. I had been pushed by a couple good football coaches who kind of brought the best out of us, and also given a training program that was intense. So I learned how to work hard. I learned to be passionate about lifting weights, and almost to the point of, overdoing it at times. I was lifting 1 to 2 times a day on top of baseball at times. So really, I learned how to push myself, but I still hadn't gotten my deadlift form down. And looking back at that video, it's very cringeworthy because I get pitched forward and I have a rounded lower back. Everything's essentially a nightmare. Now, that would have been like August of 2013. And then fast forward, my first 600-pound deadlift was at the Maryland State Championships in 2014, which I believe was in November. So is about a year and 2 months, 14 months or so, that it took me to go from a 500-pound deadlift to a 600-pound deadlift. And during those 14 months, I was continuing to train hard. I was definitely pushing myself too hard at times at school, trying to balance baseball and whatnot. And then I went over the summer. I started my job as a waiter, and I was really just getting into the weeds of powerlifting and starting to learn about form. But deadlift is one of those things, just with my build, the positioning did not come to me naturally. So whenever you see this video, you'll notice that my form had improved a whole lot, but it was far from good form by any means. It was like a glorified RDL. And, that's something we'll talk about in later videos. As I learned that form, my deadlift started to rise pretty significantly. And you can kind of tell the difference between now's deadlifts here and that 600-pound deadlift of the past. So part of it was being able to lock in my back a little bit, but form was not a huge factor. But one of the main factors was learning to eat. And I had talked about this in my Secrets to a 600-pound squat video. Essentially, I learned to eat whenever I got to Frostburg. And by learn to eat, I just mean I had access to food at unlimited quantities at times. Basically, the Frostburg food court, you would swipe and get in, and you would have access to all the food you wanted. And I talked about that in the Secrets to a 600-pound squat video, so I'm not going to kind of like beat a dead horse here, but that was one of the big things that also led to the 600-pound deadlift. And I will say, of my lifts, my deadlift had always kind of been a laggard as far as it was the slowest to progress. I want to blame my leverages, but, it's not 100% them. So as far as this first 600-pound pull, we can see my positioning is definitely very forward. right? I took some time to set up, maybe an overly elaborate setup in my opinion. So, yeah, I learned to set up a little bit. Breathing was another thing. I learned to brace more properly, and that helped with my form. So my back wasn't nearly as rounded over, but I was still pitched forward almost like an RDL, and you can see that throws me forward. But I was just brutally strong enough to pick up 600 pounds, which at the end of the day, that's kind of what makes the difference here. Okay, so hopefully that gives some insight as far as my road to 600-pound deadlift. I will continue this series. Hopefully it's been helpful. Let me know, are you chasing a 600-pound deadlift, or what milestone are you working on right now? And until next time, happy lifting.